Hello everybody! Today we're going to be talking about shutting down our FreeNas Corral server for good. Then we're going to download a copy of latest VMware ESXi from online. I'm going to mount VMware ESXi ISO virtually through IKVM, and then we're going to install VMware ESXi naturally, and we're going to go through web UI of the interface just so anybody can get familiar with it a little bit. Right after this, what I'm doing is I'm going to SSH into VMware server, and I'm going to install drivers for my 10 gig NIC cards, which it will not come pre-installed, but it can be done. It's not too difficult. And I am going to set up disk pass-through also in SSH. So disk pass-through is useful, especially if you want to run a copy of FreeNas, let's say a 9.10 version. Now, what's the difference when we say type 1 and type 2 hypervisors? Something that I mentioned in my previous video. Well, type 1 hypervisor, such as VMware, Hyper-V, Xen, and others, well, they offer closest access to hardware. The host itself doesn't take up a lot of headroom. It's not obtrusive. Virtual machines have almost direct access to hardware. And in VMware, it's true, you can pass through PCI cards, USBs, even the disks, as I shall demonstrate. And FreeNas is considered, well, the FreeNas Corral was considered type 2 hypervisor. What does that mean? Well, you have a whole subsystem below on which you build your VMs. So you have a full machine talking to hardware, and then you're virtualizing on top of that machine. So you will never, ever, ever have as good of a performance on type 2 hypervisor versus type 1 hypervisor to begin with. And then on top of that, the way the Dockers are implemented, you have to run a VM inside FreeNas, on top of which you can run Docker containers. So that's the third layer of separation from hardware. And there are some significant performance deficits by doing so. So by actually moving back to type 1 hypervisor, I can expect better performance out of my VMs. The VMs, if they're stripped down, they're not going to take much more space than the Dockers. But I'm also going to actually run eventually a CentOS server as a Docker host, and then we can play around with Dockerization as well. So without further ado, let's go into the configuration and solve this. It's going to take a little while, so stay with me. The time has come for us to shut this puppy down. So the one last thing for me to do is to download a backup file, just in case. What? There we go. FreeNas 10. Let's do downloads. Main backup backup. Give it as much information as possible. Alright, that's done. So I'm going to be shutting down this forever. Here we go. Shut down. This is IPMI of the server. Alright, here we are in our Java IKVM interface. Now I understand that 99% of the people will not have access to server hardware where they have IPMI interface to remotely access. However, you know, a USB would work just fine if you were to install VMware from a USB. It worked for me in the past billion times, so you should have no problems setting up your ESXi server directly from a USB and installing it onto another USB, which is what I'm doing really, except I'm just mounting my virtual drive through IKVM instead of a physical USB. So I want to mount my ISO file. I have to navigate to downloads to E. There we go. This is our ESXi ISO. It was a little hard to find. Plug it in. It says device VM plugged in. Okay. So the next thing to do is to power it on. Okay. F11. Oh yes, alright, so we navigate down to our virtual CD-ROM. And we're in our installer. Alright, so ESXi 650, standard installer. And it's loading it up. And if you've ever installed ESXi, it's really straightforward. I mean, it is as straightforward as it gets. There's literally no thinking. You just select where you want to install. This is going to take a little while. I'm going to pause until it completes. Alright, so here we are at the installation. Of course, they give you a little spiel. Enter to continue. F11 to accept and continue. Scanning for all available devices. This may take a few seconds. And we want to navigate to our one and only Cruiser Fit that currently has FreeNas installed on it. So we're going to select that and it's going to override everything on it. It's going to delete existing data. Yes, I'm well aware of that. So okay. Use default for me works. Root password, again, do not, I repeat, do not forget this or mess this up. F11 to install. As you can see, this little GUI interface guides you through. The only thing I have to really do is select the USB where I want to install the system on. So what this is going to do is going to format the USB and then go through the installation process, after which we are going to reboot the server. So I'm going to pause here so we don't waste too much time. Okay, here we are. That took a good 10 minutes to complete, if not more. So all I have to do is reboot. So I'm going to hit reboot here. Alright, so this window is as good as it gets, I guess. Next thing we need to do is we need to set up the server. So our options are F2 or F12. So let's do F2. Root password is the one we used during setup. Now we can change password if we wanted to. Configure management network. Network adapters. Oh, that's right. It doesn't recognize my 10 gig adapters. I'm going to have to physically reconnect 1 gig adapters. So I'm going to set static IP. I'm going to hit enter. Localhost, let's see, control this, VMware, space, and then hit enter. Okay, so we have our IPv4, we have our DNS, our VLAN. VLAN is entirely optional to you. You don't have to do VLAN, I just am doing because I'm experimenting. So I can exit, apply changes, yes, and then escape to log out. And here we are. We've set up a static IP address for our VMware. Okay folks, without further ado, we are going to go right into it and pull up our web UI. So now that I have static IP address, it's very easy to go to the UI. You just type https :/ the IP address /UI. Yes, proceed. And then our root user and password. Alright, let's try that for the third time. Yay, we're in! I had to enable Java and the whole 9 yards for this site. Okay. So we're in. It's completely empty. As you can see, the hardware is totally open. And you know, our CPU is 0% used. Memory 1%. What is this? 2 gigs. So 1%. Network also minimal. So the host consumes minimal amount of resources. That's the bottom line. There's no virtual machines. Everything is empty. Storage adapters. There we go. We have our 2 spinning rust disks, and we have, this is on NVMe. Okay, and I'm gonna add that. Use full disk. I'm gonna hit next. And then finish. Yes. Alright, it's creating data storage. It's running. Alright, so I've added this storage. There it is. It's my SSD. Okay, and if I go to the devices, I see that this is where we installed ESXi, and these 2 disks I am not going to add as storage, as data stores, because I'm going to do pass-through of these devices. Okay, so without further ado, let's jump right into this and do this. So this is a clean host. There's nothing on it. We just installed the ESXi, set it up. Next thing I have to do is I have to enable SSH. And you should only enable SSH if you have to. And as soon as you're done with it, you should disable it, especially on ESXi. And it gives you a big fat warning, says SSH is now enabled, watch out, they're out to get you. Alright, all joking aside, it's true, they are out to get you. Alright, I'm logged in. Clear the screen so that we can work. Alright, so the first thing we need to do is list the disks. So let's do ls l, and the location is vmfs, virtual machine file, VMware file system, devices, disks. Alright, so it shouldn't be too hard to find. These are 10 terabyte disks, and I already see them. Oh, these are HDSC 4 terabyte disks. You see, if you were to, for example, if you want to pass this virtual disk, you have to copy everything from, and you always want to, you see how it says 1, 2, those are different partitions. You want the one without a partition, without a number. So this, the first three are the same disk really. So this number, well, you want to copy this number all the way to the end. Right there. Whoop. Let me highlight it again and hit Control C. Alright, so now I have that in the clipboard. So how do I pass disk? I'm going to clear disk. Alright, so I'm going to clear that. So now that I have that in the clipboard, all I have to do is issue a command. Really, the hard part is done. You finding that disk identifier was the hard part. So the second part is just issuing one command, which is vm kfs tools -z space. Okay, and then we tell it where it is. So it's vm file system / devices disks. And now we tell it which disk we want to use for this. And because I have it, I just have to paste it. And then you hit space. And then the rest of the command is we tell it where to link this disk, which is vmfs, and then devices disks. And then the name of the disk, which for me was NVMe, and then the name of the file I had capital RDM, and then the name of the link, so you can call it like passdisk1.vmdk. That's it. You hit enter. You can pass through as many disks as you want with this command. All you have to find is that t10.ata string, and you copy that and you issue this command, and the link for this disk will now be available for you to locate it in your data store. Simple as that. Alright, so I've already done this, so the next thing I'm going to do is really because I have an issue with my files. This guy from Tinkertry has compiled a one-liner for my particular server. This will not work almost for anybody else, just this particular server that I have. And what this will do is this will install drivers for the 10 gig NICs that I have. So it's just this line that says go here to this address, grab this web library, install it, and spit out whatever you did, and you hit enter and it finalizes it. And that's it. Just one-liner. It's really not that difficult. I'm going to go back to data store to browse this data store. NVMe, RDM, and they are these two disks. Look, it says it's 9.1 terabyte. This one is 9.1 terabyte each. So when I create my FreeNAS, I can actually take both of these disks and assign them to the FreeNAS. Now these disks are done. They are actually passed through. So if I go back to storage and I look at all my devices, they're still there. But now I can actually assign them directly to a VM instead of assigning them as storage to ESXi and then passing them to a VM. So thanks for sticking with me. I know this was another long video. So thank you guys. Have a great day. Have fun. Enjoy the sun.